Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. I hope you're having a very pleasant Thursday afternoon. So, if you are a movie buff, then you obviously have probably heard of the movie Back to the Future, and you've probably heard of the date, November 5th, 1955. That was the date I went back to that was the date of the famous Hill Valley lightning storm. And then, throughout that movie, at one point, Doc Brown pontificates. Maybe that specific date has some significance. Maybe that specific date is wrapped around the space-time continuum in a way that keeps everything going. Well, I got to thinking, obviously that's fiction, but in real life, America changed in 1973. In the year after that, in some of the years leading up to that, 1973, as I look at it, may be the year that America collectively, and I know that's not necessarily theological truth, collectively losing your soul. Thank the Lord, we are individually saved through faith in Jesus Christ. But something happened. Spiritual battles were lost in a very big way that set this country on the path, and now we are experiencing the results of those steps. We're going to talk about that. I've got Eric Haynes with me in seat number 3. The Paul Harrell program starts right now.
The Paul Harrell program.
All right. As always, broadcasting from the great state of Arkansas here on LFA TV, as well as the Paul Harrell program over on YouTube. Really do appreciate you being with us wherever you're watching the show, whether it's over at X American News or whether it's over in North Central Arkansas. We would ask you to do all of the on cable there. If you're on cable, you're going to need to get online. We would love you to join our audience. But we want you to do all the things: like, share, subscribe, repost, retweet, whatever it is. We would very much appreciate it so this message continues to get out and to grow. So greetings to you guys. So back in 1920, a man by the name of G.K. Chesterton wrote something that has echoed throughout history for more than a century at this point. This is what he said, quote, "There is a healthy and unhealthy love of animals, but I will not worship an animal. Wherever there is animal worship, there is human sacrifice." Think about that for a moment. Wherever there is animal worship, there is human sacrifice. That is both symbolically, he says, and literally a real truth of historical experience, end quote. So I saw that quote this morning in a TikTok that scrolled past my eyes, and it was really about the huge moral shifts that occurred in America in 1973. 1973, as I said earlier, could be the tipping point when our country, our leaders, essentially gave away America's soul. Think about what happened. In January 73, the Supreme Court, of course, we all know, handed down Roe v. Wade, recognizing a constitutional right to abortion. 1973 marks the year that America legally permitted human sacrifice on a massive scale, and while it was overturned with the Dobbs decision, we now know there are more abortions now than there were, thanks to the abortion pill and thanks to Walgreens and CVS on every corner in America are now effectively operating as, Planned Parenthoods. Then look at what else surrounded that moment back in 1973. Just months earlier, in 1972, Congress passed the Marine Mammal Protection Act, giving unprecedented federal protections to whales, dolphins, and porpoises. Before that year was over, President Nixon would sign the Endangered Species Act, creating sweeping protections for endangered wildlife, including sea turtles. Sea turtles, more valuable than babies? Chesterton's warning wasn't about loving animals or not loving animals. Obviously, Christians are called to steward God's creation. But Chesterton was warning about reversing the moral order. And again, that warning was profound. Wherever there is animal worship, there will also be human sacrifice. Think about this. In a way, once a civilization begins treating animals as possessing a higher moral value than human beings, it has already begun sacrificing humanity before the baby killing even begins. In the same year, America elevated legal protections for vulnerable animals. It also elevated a legal doctrine that denied protection to the most vulnerable human beings of all, the unborn. The contrast is stark, and while that massive hypocrisy was being judicially and legally codified, there was another major decision in 1973 that receives far less attention. That case was called Miller versus California. It's the very famous case that enabled the distribution of pornography throughout our country. Many people assume that Miller simply legalized pornography. That's a misunderstanding. It didn't. In fact, the court reaffirmed that obscenity could still be prohibited and it could still be prosecuted. But it changed something significant. It changed something significant that might seem small. It allows leftists to point to Miller as being not what it actually practically is, the distribution of pornography. The court, again, back in 73, moved away from judging obscenity by a broader national conception of decency that rejected promoting lust as a First Amendment right, and instead allowed the interpretation of what's decency to local community standards. Local communities like New York or San Francisco. Now, that may sound like a technical legal distinction, but it carried an enormous practical consequence. If obscenity is judged locally, then communities that are already more permissive toward vice and want to create a market for legalized lust, they become the places where the industry flourishes. But it's not in a vacuum, because large metropolitan areas suddenly become the centers of production, distribution, and cultural influence. Publishers don't build their businesses where juries are likely to convict them. They build their businesses where juries are unlikely to convict them. So over time, those same cities become the cultural exporters for the rest of the nation, which is why I know specifically here in our own community, they had these laws where, bookstores could not select the magazines that they wanted to carry. You had to eventually carry all of them, including the dirty magazines, or you didn't get access to any of the catalogs. Now, that eventually was challenged, but you see how subversive it was. Had to be manufactured somewhere, and it infested not just the big cities, but it infested these small Christian rural communities. So while this decision, Miller, preserved the ability of conservative communities to enforce obscenity laws, it also gave America's most permissive cities greater latitude to define what would be tolerated within their own borders. As those cities grew in cultural influence, so too did the industries they hosted. So looking back, 1973 feels like a collection of unrelated legal decisions maybe to you, but to me it's a crossroads. It was a tipping point where our nation embraced baby sacrifice and the sexual lifestyles that create more babies to be sacrificed. One decision changed how America viewed unborn human life. Another reflected a growing willingness to place extraordinary legal emphasis on protecting animals. Another decentralized obscenity standards in a way that over time coincided with the expansion and normalization of the pornography industry. The spiritual significance of these decisions is legion, pun intended. But I don't think it's unreasonable to ask whether they all reflected a deeper spiritual battle the demonic realm is quite pleased with. A battle that the good guys lost. Not the war, but a battle. Chesterton, back to this quote, was warning us about what happens when a civilization loses its hierarchy of values, when a culture can passionately defend a sea turtle, a porpoise, or an eagle, while remaining divided over the value of its own unborn children. Nations tend to self-destruct over things like that. To take Chesterton's thought one step further, not as a historian, but as a Christian, the Bible repeatedly tells us that behind the idols of the nations, there are spiritual realities. Throughout the Old Testament, pagan worship was often inseparable from two things: sexual immorality and the sacrifice of children. Think about the ancient world. The Canaanites, the Phoenicians, the Aztecs, centuries later, different civilizations, the same gods, just repackaged. But the pattern is hauntingly familiar. The gods were always hungry. They demanded blood. They demanded children, and the path to the altar ran through sexual license. That pattern should make every Christian stop and think. Because what if Chesterton was pointing to something much deeper than politics? What if he was describing a spiritual law that civilizations ignore? That's what he was doing. We ignore it at our own peril. You can look around us. We've spent decades building an entertainment industry that profits by encouraging lust, stripping away modesty, normalizing pornography. We tell ourselves that sex has no higher purpose than pleasure. We separate intimacy from responsibility. We celebrate license while removing restraint. And what follows is more broken families, more casual sex, more pregnancies that are treated as inconveniences, something that Rob Spencer, we've got this video we're going to get to here in a minute. Co-host Rob Spencer, we posted another short, and wouldn't you know it, leftist women are upset with what he said about adoption and abortion. And then, of course, there's the sacrifice. Babies are treated as inconvenient, and the sacrifice happens. The unborn child becomes the price paid so the cycle can continue uninterrupted. We are feeding something here, folks. Then we return to the very culture that produced it. We consume more pornography, indulge in more lust, create more pregnancies, and once again dispose of the children who stand in the way. The cycle repeats. Not because someone forces it to, because we've built a civilization that feeds it. And Chesterton warned, again, quote, wherever there is animal worship, there is human sacrifice. Today, we live in a country where it is a serious federal crime to destroy the eggs of certain sea turtles, where dolphins and porpoises receive extraordinary legal protection, while for decades the law denied protection to millions of unborn human beings. Something has gone terribly, horribly wrong when the law expresses greater certainty about protecting an eagle's egg than a human child in the womb. From a Christian perspective, this isn't merely a political failure, it is evidence of a civilization that has confused the created order. History shows us that pagan societies often united sexual excess with the sacrifice of children. Christians believe Christ came to break those chains, not to sanctify them. And perhaps the greatest deception of our age is that we no longer call it sacrifice, we call it something else. Freedom, choice, we call it health care. But changing the name of an altar has never changed what happens on it. And I'll just add one more thing, and I'd love to get your response to this, Eric. And that would just be kind of towards the end, because we've actually seen all this. The massive amount of pornography that's flooded our country now is actually contributing to less births in a lot of demographics. Whereas it's almost like, okay, we're sacrificing so many children because of the over-sexualization of our society, and now there are actually less and less pregnancies. Well, and abortion is way up, but my point is our society, there's kind of what I would say is like a built-in mechanism that God creates for societies as they rise and they fall, and it just seems, I mean, whether it's immigration being invaded by third world barbarian hordes and being conquered from within, or birth rates collapsing so your posterity doesn't have a shot anymore, and we do this to ourselves, and we got to stop. We got to reverse. We got to repent. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this, Eric Haynes?
Great to be part of the conversation today, Paul.
Yes, sir. Sorry, that was
Don't apologize at all.
All right, loaded.
Okay, first off, don't
long.
you dare apologize.
All right, it was long though.
It was long, and there's a lot to unpack. If you want to go down a lot of different roads there. Bottom line for me is that you remind us all that the devil is real, and there's spiritual warfare that's been going on for a very, very long time. The quote, Lord come quickly, unquote, cliche, ism that a lot of people say all the time in response to things like this and the facts and the reality and the statistics of where our culture and where our society has debased itself to in a lot of ways. It's incredibly frustrating because as a Christian dad trying to raise good kids in this society, I want to believe that all these great things are going on and that I can mentor my kids through all the bad to get to the good, which is the way I try to see life pretty optimistically. As you guys know, notoriously, I'm a glass half full type person, but it would be foolish to not be aware of where we are and how far we've gone down.
Yeah.
And you just don't have to look around very far to see it or have all that many conversations with people to know what is really and let me say it this way. I'm getting to the point of you can't even look that many years out and say, will society be better off when my kids are older than it is now? Parents in this generation are constantly worried because our parents didn't have to stress about, didn't have to worry about, didn't go through and weren't seeing the things that you and I see and that our kids are probably going to see at younger ages.
Yeah, I mean,
and have it hit them right in the face like a 2x4. Like,
yep.
Part of me looks back on my generation of growing up, and I'm just like, golly, my parents must have done a pretty darn good job of keeping me sheltered from a lot of this stuff because, well, everything you're saying is completely real. And it is absolutely going on in our society. We are getting worse and worse. And when, and I'm not even just talking about abortion and porn and the depravity of society in general and Hollywood and all of that yuckiness, but everything around has us constantly on edge as
that's true.
Adults and parents in this society because we know that our kids don't have it worse, or our kids do have it worse than we did, and are seeing things at much younger ages. Was part of a class recently where it was called the Elephants in the Room class at church, and brought in speakers every week to talk to parents about what kids are facing these days, because a lot of us, we don't necessarily know what we don't know yet, but these psychologists and these professors and teachers are telling us, because they've got the data to back it up, about not only the anxious generation, but about the ages that kids are seeing things that I didn't see until I was like in college. And they're talking about kids that aren't even they're not even older, they're not even in double digits yet, and they're seeing things that are just absolutely horrible, and they're hearing about friends getting abortions and things it's terrible. It's absolutely awful. So God bless you for that monologue, because you bring up a really good point, and it's not meant to, Debbie down anything. It's just we have to accept what's in front of us and then figure out a way to be shining lights. And it's like we tell our kids every day on the way to school, let your light shine and don't let anybody put out your light.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, I know there's not a lot of solutions. There wasn't a lot of solutions in that monologue, but, I mean, the solutions are actually found in our past. They're found in, this 1973 date, a lot went wrong in those. I mean, obviously the 60s are bad too. There was a lot of attacks against our decency laws in the 60s leading up to that 1973 decision, Miller versus California. But we need to go back and understand, what was it like before that? Well, we had decency laws.
Yeah.
We would put people in jail. We would fine them if they broke those decency laws.
Yeah.
So now the idea of putting them back in, people start to say, well, that's, you'll get two arguments. I mean, like, well, historically, does a majority really want them back in? Well, maybe they do if they were ever actually given the vote for it. Maybe they would. But then you get to the point of, well, maybe we have to maybe there has to be a blanket revival, individual repentance, individual conversions of people to Christ before we get the laws, right? There's people that will say, well, you got to do that first. And I think that's obviously true in a lot of ways that would help. But then also historically, you can look at how minorities, organized minorities, make huge changes and can get controlled and change laws. And it's happened all throughout history. And the left actually understands that very well. And they're very, very good at it.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's a combination of the two, but you have to go back and realize, this also has to do with rejecting our current understanding of what liberty is. We have bought the lie that the American founders secured for us liberty that allows us to use the First Amendment to say, I want to get an abortion or whatever, and then at the same time, or want to distribute pornography, and then at the same time, we've got cops. We'll cover this in a minute. We got cops in Fort Worth, Texas, that are threatening to arrest people based on saying something that another person on the street, a street preacher who's preaching the gospel, is being threatened to be arrested because somebody gets offended by what he says. And the cops are literally on board with that. It's just it's kind of odd, right? It's like, well, we're going to use the First Amendment to basically protect our right to sin, but then we won't use the First Amendment for what it was actually intended, which was to protect people's right to say true things.
Right. No, Antifa group, you are not William Wallace, and you don't get to run around the streets beating up people that you disagree with and yell freedom the whole time, and that be your excuse and that be okay. No.
Yeah.
That dog doesn't hunt.
I also think, too, you were asking the question about, how did my parents do it? And I think we all feel that way to some degree. And, we remember our parents saying, man, things are really bad compared to when I was growing up, and now we're saying the same thing to our kids. But you also have to understand that there is still goodness in the shoulders that we stand on, and it's a derivative, and it is a blessing that we are living still off of the derivative fumes of some really good people that came before us, our fathers, right? And also, we are a very big country, and so what was going on in New York and San Francisco were not affecting Missouri and Arkansas the same way that they are now.
Right.
So there are still great pockets, right? I affectionately refer to Arkansas as the Shire, just because I think that's what it feels like to me. That's what I see. And so,
my grandparents' generation, when they were raising my parents' generation, they were just trying to keep them, out of the hippie buses and not listening to the Beatles. My parents' generation were trying to tell me that Marilyn Manson was bad and that I didn't need to ride that skateboard like all the punks do, and that I need to go to school and get good grades and all those things and not be a rebel. And now I'm sitting here with kids that aren't even teenagers yet, and I'm trying to keep them shielded from some of the most insane things that their friends with smartphones and their friends with older siblings with smartphones are willing to pull out of their pockets and show them in public and at events and things. And then the questions that I get asked later on at night when they come home, or when we're sitting at dinner, I'm just blown away by it. I have to earmuff my 6-year-old from conversations that my 10 and 11-year-olds are having about things that I didn't know about until I was 20. But they're hearing it, and I have to have those conversations with them, because if I don't, somebody else will. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously, that's part of it. That's part of parenthood. But, it's just, it is wild, because I'll have conversations with my folks about it, and they'll be like, OMG. Like, really? And it's incredibly frustrating.
I don't mean to press in, but do you have any specific example, just like one specific example that can even be said, talked about, or not? It's cool not. Just think about it, and if something comes to mind.
I mean, Yeah, there's just a lot of sexual-related terminology and innuendos that kids say nowadays and that are hearing at earlier ages that I just don't think I was prepared for one. And that's just one little example.
Right. Yeah. I hope that doesn't. I'm just thinking of conversations that I don't want to have yet. You know.
But so look,
so far so good.
We cannot isolate them and put them into a box and never let them out and never let them see things and never get out and do things because we're trying to keep them cocooned into this little perfect sheltered box until they go to college, and then what?
Yeah.
So there's a balance with everything. I talk about balance all the time because my dad's trying to remind me all the time, like, because he did that my whole growing up. He's like, son, you have to find balance and have a balanced perspective and understand that there's two sides to everything and that you've got to get to a point to where you're looking at both options. And he was an accountant, so for him, everything goes on a ledger, right? There's assets and there's liabilities.
Yeah.
And
credits and debits.
That's right.
Credits and debits, baby.
So, find a balance.
All right, so to kind of add more context to what it is we're talking about here, the first person that I ever heard talk about this year, 1973. So when I saw this TikTok, and I apologize for not citing it. I didn't capture it. But the first person I ever heard say this word, 1973, an abortion, and specifically refer to this phrase, Christian consensus, that our country used to have a Christian consensus, was Francis Schaeffer. Francis Schaeffer is a theologian. He wrote a book called The Christian Manifesto. He also wrote a book called How Should We Then Live? He also wrote a series of really thick 3 books. One of them is The God Who Is There. Really, really, really amazing theologian, if you ever want to look into it. But this was back in the day. I don't know if he was with, he was on a TV show, let's just put it that way. And this is what he said about America's founding versus today. And I think it's relevant to what we are talking about.
And I would want to say with all finality that if the founding fathers could come back and see what's being made of that First Amendment, they would consider it nothing less than tyranny. Say 80 years ago, there was an absolute Christian consensus in this country. This country was founded on a Christian consensus, a Judeo-Christian position, especially as it came out of the Reformation, and this was the dominant view. But beginning about 80 years ago, it began to shift. And then all the titanic changes have come in the last 40 years. So within the time of our own lifetime, the changes come. Today, we live in a humanist society. They control the schools, they control public television, they control the media in general. And what we have to say is we live in a humanist society. But we're moving very, very rapidly toward a totally humanist society. And if we don't hurry up and do something, we're really in trouble.
Well, let's go. One of the things that I hear so often is the question of separation of church and state. They say, well, we're supposed to separate church and state, and the humanists don't mean by that what our founding fathers, of course, they didn't use that in the Constitution, but the thinking of today is vastly different from what our founding fathers thought.
Absolutely contrary to it. The First Amendment only meant 2 things and nothing else, and that is that they would not have a national church. Like the Church of England or the Church of Sweden. The church, they were opposed to the concept of a church for the 13 colonies. The second thing is, now listen, because it's exactly contrary to what's being made, the state would not interfere with religion. Now that's all the First Amendment meant. And today it's been turned over and made the absolute opposite, so that what is now is that the state is interfering with religion in the very opposite thing. And that now, notice I'm saying religion, not Christianity, that religion now is ruled out of any real impact in our thinking. And the craziness of this shows itself that from the very first, they had somebody pray in Congress. Congress isn't open until it's open with prayer.
That's correct.
So they still keep doing it. But you can't pray in public schools.
Yes.
How schizophrenic can you get?
Well, it's the same thing with the Supreme Court, which says, God bless this noble court. I mean, it starts out that way, and yet they deny the privilege to little children to do what they do and to post the Ten Commandments, which they have on the walls of their court.
And I would want to say with all finality that if the Founding Fathers could come back and see what's being made of that First Amendment, they would consider it nothing less than tyranny.
I'm glad the clip recycles that, because that was the first clip that's kind of like, whoa, what do you mean? How is it that our modern interpretation of the First Amendment is actually a tyranny on the people? And I think you'd have to go to when they decided to take, in the name of separation of church and state, they said local communities can't pray in their school or can't pray before a football game. I mean, think that is tyranny. I mean, that is if that's the definition of tyranny. The government saying that, and we of course know on this program, we talk about it a lot, that those 13 colonies had religious tests for office that were considered totally constitutional as far as they were concerned, because they wrote the thing and then they were enacting those laws. They also had state religions. Some of the colonies had they didn't want a national church, but they had state churches, individual colonies that said, hey, we're going to be this, this denomination is kind of what we think is right, and it'll be best for homogeneous, harmonious living. So for the most part, we're going to say that this is our denomination of our state or whatever. That was all consistent. That was all fine. Local people groups voting themselves the government that they want to have. So that's my solution. Like, my solution is, I'm highlighting all this. My solution is just remember who you are. Remember who you are. And in doing that, you're going to come to a crossroads. You're going to come to a crossroads. And the crossroads is a binary choice, and it really is. You either have Christian laws that are informed by biblical morality, and you enforce them, or you have Muslim foot washing stations or 90-foot tall monkey statues in Denton, Texas, or wherever that is in Texas, or you have Mexican cartel housing where they're taking over entire, building for themselves entire subdivisions in Liberty County, Texas. Liberty County, that's the solution is definitely political organization, but understanding that this live and let live libertarianism is the reason for our current state right now. That's my 30,000-foot view of the situation.
I think Christians, to a fault, have taken a very passive approach to the decay of our culture and our society, because we've isolated ourselves to our church families and synagogues and places where we worship, and then we try to keep our families a little tight, and we try to, as the Bible says, teach the truth in love, and always be, our speech seasoned with salt, and be mindful of grace, and all these good, happy, flowery things. Okay, we don't judge. It doesn't do us any good to get up and lash out and ridicule everyone else that disagrees, and we've just taken more of a passive approach to society and our culture in a lot of ways. And so what it has done indirectly, it has opened the gates for the devil to get in and to plant those seeds. And, you can go back to whatever decade or generation you want. You can look at the 70s, you can look at the 80s, you can look at the 60s, keep going back farther and farther if you want, and see how are we where we are right now based on, our history over the past 60, 70 years. And I think we would be embarrassed to say that we did a pretty good job of taking care of ourselves, but there was little accountability and little as it relates to from a legal perspective, an attempt to really lobby for a better society.
I think that's a really good point. And as I hear you talking, I think about the two greatest commandments, because I think actually I can sum up what you said by looking to Matthew 22, 36 through 40. 36, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And he said to them, Christ says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. But what happens, Eric, when we take the second and we supplant it and make that the first? Mm-hmm. And that's what's actually happened, because what you were saying essentially is we have redefined what the term nice is at the expense of the first greatest commandment, to love the Lord your God. There is a point where it is hating your brother to not call them out. And we say, it's judgment or whatever, but it's actually a loving thing to do, to say, hey, what you're doing is wrong and is going to send you to hell if you don't repent and turn to Christ. I mean, that's...
Whoa, Paul.
Right? Whoa. All right.
You legalistic, Bible-banging, pearl-clutching...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is what actually, and that's the thing. We are supplanting the first greatest commandment and putting the second one in its place, which is just basically modern liberalism.
Yeah.
On steroids. Live and let live. I don't want to judge. I mean, who was it? I was talking to. So my dad's in the hospital. So I was up there after I got off the show. Yeah, I think he may come home today when I get off the show, or tomorrow. He's doing well, so thank you for your prayers. So he's got a lot of visitors, people from his Sunday school, and then we were talking about. They were talking about these people that are their age that are leftists on Facebook, that go to church, but will just post the most anti-Trump or just all. They're just infected with the brain virus, right? And we actually remarked how funny it is that I asked my mom and I asked her friend, I was like, have you, when Joe Biden was president, did you ever go on Facebook and be like, I hate Joe Biden, da-da-da-da-da? And the answer is no, you didn't, because you have a life. And yes, did I? Yes, but I mean, that's what I do, and I didn't even really do it that often, but but just average people are their whole world isn't turned upside down if a leftist gets elected president. Now, it may end up being turned upside down if they put Christians in boxcars, but people, it's the government changing is not some life-altering, oh my goodness, it's not this thing, but it is for the left, and it is for leftists who also, call themselves Christians. But I was asking about this one particular because they were talking about it, and I was like, well, have you ever confronted this person about why they vote for Democrats, and yet, they go to church, and they were like, yeah, we mentioned, the whole abortion issue, that they're for abortion. And her response was, well, I've never had an abortion. And that's the justification. Well, I've never had one. So, but, whatever somebody else does is their business, and I can keep voting for Democrats with a clear conscience, which is retarded. It just is. It's retarded.
I actually praise churches and Christians that have the gumption and guts to speak out these days, because they're becoming fewer and fewer. And so many, I know I'm thinking a lot of them right off the top of my head, their policy, literally have defined policy in their congregation. We will not speak on any political topics or have any discussion from either the pulpit or from our leadership about political topics. Now, the problem with that comes when it's so will you speak about abortion and the sanctity of life? No. Is it politics? Is that politics? So let me get this straight. You won't even speak out about the topic of life because that's politics, and you don't want to cause dissension among your ranks and have some people stop tithing, is basically what you're saying, right?
Ooh.
Sorry.
No, that
is 100% true and happens. Mm-hmm. I know of churches all over across the area that have this problem. Mm-hmm. And they're constantly weighing back and forth, and they try to take this high road approach, like we'll just stay above that. We'll just float here among the clouds, and we won't speak about any of that
on the
stuff.
fence.
Whoa, you can't talk about immigration or we can't talk about abortion. We can't even say Charlie Kirk's name from our pulpit. At whatever, I know of many congregations that didn't and that wouldn't, because we don't want to offend certain folks that are in the pews.
Yep.
Or risk that, and I think that's a big part of our problem and part of why we are where we are. To your original point from the beginning of this conversation today, part of it is that, and how lukewarm are we in that, and won't he spit us out of his mouth?
Yep. That's good.
Sorry.
No, I agree. And it's all, we don't want to. We're afraid to be not nice. We're afraid of generalizations as well, and it's crazy
because we don't think that there can be balance.
Yeah,
but there really can.
Well,
be.
the Apostle Paul would not get hired in most of most churches today.
Right.
Right. He went and preached the gospel, and there were riots. There was conversions, and then there were riots.
Stephen was stoned.
Yeah. Paul went out and told the Cretans. He made some very interesting generalizations, saying all Cretans are liars and gluttons. Now, he's saying this to new Christians who are Cretans, and he's essentially telling them, if you go read it, it's absolutely incredible. You say something like that in a church today, he's speaking to the sins that are common among that nation, and he's essentially telling these new Christians, hey, you're going to struggle with this, but overcome it, and and call out the sins of your fellow your fellow Cretans, and they need to repent of this. They need to turn to Christ.
Yeah.
All Cretans are liars. I mean, that's in Scripture.
Well, so many Christians don't want to call out this stuff because then they put themselves at risk of saying, well, you're a fat glutton, or well, you're guilty of this, or you're guilty of that, or you've committed this sin or that, or I mean, people just have guilt about
their own stuff. Yeah. That's absolutely true. Yeah. That is absolutely true. Here's some more. I'll just say this. I'm going to tie this in. So the Wall Street Journal is now reporting that 49% of American adults under 30 lived with a parent last year, up from 37% in 2019. That is a wild statistic, in my opinion. I'll tie this back to the monologue where we were talking about how, 73 legalized abortion, basically distributed pornography everywhere, the sexual revolution of the 60s. Now you've got all of this. Now you've got the means to sacrifice the kid in response to the, a live and let live, sexual freedom, all this other stuff. But then eventually the society gets to a point where now we're actually having, less family formation, less marriages, declining birth rate after we've killed, 50, 60 million children since 73. And now the society is, can you imagine if there were 50 million more people in America right now, what that would be? Now, I argue the satanic overpopulationists would say, oh, no, we can't handle that. But the reality is I believe the earth is underpopulated, not anywhere close to being overpopulated. And by the way, who are we to make those kind of eugenic decisions as well, right? Like this is part of our mandate as creations of God, as mankind, to go forth, to multiply, to subdue the earth. Yeah. This is what we're called to do. And then in the light of the gospel, we do that as well as, we watch Christ's kingdom grow with every new person born that becomes a Christian. Literally, the kingdom of God descending, creating new converts as we see things. We see His kingdom grow. A lot of people ask, why hasn't Jesus come back yet? Well, in the grand scheme of things, there are still more people that are here that haven't repented of their sin, and there are people that are yet to be born that the Lord wants a relationship with. So that's why we're down here.
I will say
That's one of
certain,
the
certain
reasons.
Portions of sanctuary cities are overpopulated, Paul.
Hey.
I've seen it.
There you go. There you go. But like,
But they're incentivized to be there.
to your point about the Bible, though, and our churches that don't want to talk about these political issues, this comes from a fear of loss of money, I think, a fear of conflict. But I think it comes from a theological ignorance on some of these people's part to be able to say, okay, maybe not from the pulpit, but like certainly like, hey, let me sit you down and let's talk about the biblical principles, like why immigration, why it is okay, in fact, to limit immigration. Because a lot of these leftists point to, the sojourner in their land,
yes,
right? And
yes.
but this is a good idea. Let's go to the Bible. Let's look at the context of that.
Yeah.
We want to be kind to the foreigners, but we don't want to give them birthright citizenship. That's not mandated. It's also not mandated that you have to allow them to come in and steal from you. It's not mandated that you'll have to let them rape your daughters.
Right.
Like that is clearly not at all what that verse is saying, and yet that's what they would have you believe. So in a lot of the cases, there's actually a lack of pastoring that's going on for these people in these congregations that aren't being taken aside in love and saying, hey, let me tell you why you can look to the Bible to explain and categorize all of this stuff that we're seeing and why it's not necessarily bad. Are you going to call God a bigot for enforcing the border of the Garden of Eden when he kicked Adam and Eve out? No, you're not going to do that. Are you going to call him a bigot when he literally established the nations after Babel for his own purposes? I mean, there are, and then, and this really kind of goes full circle. It is out of those principles that we can create laws that restrain wickedness. Doesn't save anybody. To be clear, doesn't save anybody, but it certainly restrains wickedness. Mm-hmm. And it certainly can set up a situation where we protect the innocent and punish the guilty, which that is another thing that has happened alongside of this. The lawlessness in our country has gone completely insane. We see it at the upper echelons with the deep state not being punished. But we also have a totalitarian system that we are watching being birthed because of the immorality of the people. And Schaeffer actually talks about this in How Should We Then Live? Because we've gotten so far away from the Christian consensus, we are becoming more and more wicked, right? Gay marriage leads to transing kids. Like, that's on the slippery slope. Everything, and before that, you could say easy divorce and all of that stuff. It leads to where we are now. So you have all these people who, let's just say the kids that we do have out there, they don't really care about that fifth commandment, honoring their father and mother. They won't honor their father and mother. They'll go out on the town. What do? They get arrested for not being, and you could say that that's the parents' fault. In a lot of cases it is. They're not being raised right, not being raised in the fear and admonition of the Lord. So the government comes in and passes more laws to try to manage this immoral population. I mean, look at the inner cities.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so guess what?
Good job getting black fathers out of the homes.
Yeah,
government.
exactly.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
So then, but you have a law that, and look at what the judges are doing with these laws. They're just turning people loose, making us less safe. But here's the thing, even if you have a serious approach with it, which is what the NSA surveillance state is, that may not yet be able to be used against you in a court of law, but they certainly know how to find this information and make it admissible. An immoral population is always going to find a way around the law that is there to try to keep them from doing something. So then they pass another law, Eric. They get around that, then they pass another law, and then eventually we have the technology. Well, we can just put cameras everywhere to make us safe, and we actually lose our privacy and lose our liberty. And now you have Generation Alpha and Gen Z, which is the first generation to actively know that their whole lives are under surveillance this entire time. And this is affecting them in a huge way, whether antisocial behavior or more bombastic behavior to try to rage against the machine.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the flock cameras that we have and everything that's going on with the flock cameras. This is a perfect segue here. Let me skip ahead to this story. In Houston, Texas, we have people that are beginning to vandalize flock cameras. Here is a local affiliate, the ABC affiliate down in Houston.
Camera that once stood here is gone. All that's left is this pole across the street, another one taken down as well. A criminal justice expert tells me this could be a sign of the growing public unease with this type of video surveillance. In two different parts of Houston, the same scene, surveillance cameras lying on the ground. Two near Memorial Park, two more near Washington Avenue and Westcott, all part of Flock Safety's automated license plate reader network used by Houston police and other law enforcement agencies. Houston police confirming an investigation into this. While the motive is unknown, the technology itself has drawn criticism in the past from people concerned about the data they're collecting.
What level of frustration have we encountered? Right.
Texas Southern University professor Howard Henderson, founding director of the Center for Justice Research, says the backlash reflects broader concerns over privacy and who ultimately has access to the information these cameras collect.
For many in society, they're looking at what the negative unintended consequences may be if this information gets leaked or someone uses it and finds itself in the wrong hands.
A crowdsourced map from dflock.org shows thousands of flock cameras across the greater Houston area. Because anyone can submit locations, ABC 13 cannot independently verify the data shown, but we know that multiple law enforcement agencies use the cameras. Houston expanded its use of the technology through a multi-million-dollar agreement with Flock in 2022. In that contract, HPD describes the camera as an investigative tool, writing that, quote, all data from vehicles observed will be provided to HPD for further assessment in detecting vehicles wanted in suspicious or post-event investigations for law enforcement purposes. Just months ago, Harris County commissioners voted to renew its contract through June 2027 at a cost of just under $869,000. The Harris County Sheriff's Office
So the people are revolting from this mass surveillance. Here is that same ABC affiliate.
This camera has been cut down, completely sprayed over with an American flag on it, and not far away there's another flock camera on the ground as well. HPD says it's investigating this, but so far there are more questions than answers.
So that's hilarious that they're putting the American flag in its place. That is sending a very clear message that, again, we need to remember who we are, who we were, not and who we are. Totally two different things. There's also a flock camera now reported. Wall Street Ape says this is extremely suspicious. A flock camera is being installed right outside an Academy Sports. These sell firearms. But pay very close attention to where the camera is pointed, right at the door. This isn't tracking license plates. It's literally installed and pointed directly at the door of the sporting store to capture who's going in and out. There it is. So people are making note of this. Also, there's security footage right here. Reportedly,
I think they want to catch shoplifters, though, right? Wouldn't that be their argument?
Yep, I'm sure that's what they would say.
Okay.
I'm sure that's what they would say. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a good thing to say. But this
could
put
also, one of these on every Walmart.
It could also be abused.
And Kroger.
Yeah, and you could say if you really want to track gun purchases, look, if you're walking and purchasing a gun with your phone, everything's you're being listened to. All of that stuff's happening.
Yeah.
But we also, even in our own city, Eric, even our own city here in Northeast Arkansas. Tim Logan says this is the number and location of the Jonesboro, Arkansas flock surveillance cameras. Every trip to the store, every drive around town, every movement you make tracked with no warrant required. This is absolutely contrary to a free people and trashes our right to be free from unreasonable searches. Keep the cameras, he says. Require a warrant and notification your location has been tracked for every use. I mean that I don't even know if that's administratively possible. I see
who he tagged there.
All of our state legislators.
Our local state legislators.
Well, so Eric, I fought this. I fought this. This was years ago. I was on radio. I was only on one station.
Yeah.
Here in town, and so this was very early on, and I remember they got rid of the pressure or magnetic. They used to do stoplights by just magnetism, essentially. You would cross into the magnetic field. There were wires laid inside the pavement, and you would cross into that magnetic field, and it would know a car's there. They got rid of those, and they started putting cameras up. I started asking questions. I did some FOIA. I actually, talked to some city managers because I wanted to know if that if those things were just being used as sensors, or was it actually capturing video? And the answer I got at the time was, yes, it can capture video, but it can only capture it. You can only see it if you go to the actual stoplight and plug in a monitor, and then it's there, right? And I said, is it going to stay that way? And, well, we hope so, but it didn't. What happened is it eventually got all networked, and now the whole city is wired with cameras. And you can say, well, like people in the comments, well, this sure is nice if we ever need to catch a predator, or, you know, somebody's kidnapped a child. And it's like, yeah, 100%. You say, well, yeah, of course, I'm sure it can do good, but we are forfeiting our liberty for security. And, I mean, we are literally doing that.
We've been doing that for a big time since 9/11.
We have.
Though.
We have.
I mean.
No. I mean, I get it, but it's interesting. And maybe
everything went out the door on 9/11
with the Patriot Act. Yeah. Give us your freedom, and our Congress gave it away. They gave it all away, and and if it wasn't for Edward Snowden, we really wouldn't know to the extent of how bad it is.
But their original point was probably legitimate, but as with everything, it gets corrupted and it gets used for the wrong.
The whole thing has been used against us.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole intel oligarchy, they framed Donald Trump for treason. They spied on his campaign.
Yeah.
They did all of that. They turned it against the American people. They've run color revolutions against our own people with all of this technology and money things like the Patriot Act. Oh, you want to be a patriot, don't you?
Right. You want to know when the next Saudis or whoever's coming from the Middle East to fly planes into the next buildings, right? You want us to be ahead of that, right?
Yeah. It's really messed up. And on Friday, because I was doing the 4th of July thing, 250, and we went to the root word of patriot, which is patrios, which means of thy father. It's kind of really messed up when you think about it. Like, the Patriot Act was basically used, against the people that actually live here.
Yeah. Speaking of Patriot, there's a good comment in the LFA chat that says, just wait until all the data centers are online.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
yep.
Can you imagine once they're all internetworked and incorporated and partnered up and working together for, I mean, it could be, again, if my kid is kidnapped, I want these suckers on figuring out exactly where the car is so I can go, hunt them down and kill them.
Exactly.
But this is enemy of the state stuff.
Yep.
This is
Minority Report.
This is Gene Hackman and Will Smith figuring out, or Gene Hackman explaining to Will Smith what the deal is.
Yeah.
And what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
And him being like, oh. Well, that ain't good.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, they shouldn't know that.
100%.
Well, they shouldn't be able to do that.
So we're going to reset here, take a quick break, and then we've got to circle back to Rob Spencer's, our co-host Rob Spencer, who is in one of our shorts, and I want to read some of these liberal ladies' comments about what he said about abortion when we come back. Before we do, I do want to tell you about red light panels from Redvive Health. That's redvivehealth.org/Paul. You see on your screen there, you've got the different panels. This is, I think, life-enhancing, saving technology, photobiomodulation, and it can do everything from decrease, anti-aging, can help regrow your hair, give you this huge boost of energy. It can help you with your arthritis. It can help you with your chronic pain, your inflammation throughout your body. And they do this with the technology of red light and near-infrared light, both in these panels. You can actually toggle between the two, use them all at once. You feel better. Guys, you perform better. We're talking about cellular energy. We're talking about all sorts of things because the red light and near-infrared light stimulate the mitochondria of your cell, which is the powerhouse of your cell, if you remember anything about 10th grade biology. And you need to give this a chance. If anything, go to redvivehealth.org right now, and all you need to do is read and do the research and read what they have. Read about this technology and, in some cases, patent-pending beam angle technology. You definitely want to check this out. This is a way to get off the medical industrial complex hamster wheel, and I think goes hand in glove with the MAHA agenda. redvivehealth.org/Paul. With my name, you will receive 35% off. This is medical grade technology, and we're going to be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
MyPillow's second annual mega sale is finally here. Get our patented premium MyPillows that adjust to your exact individual needs to give you the best sleep of your life.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
Now for the lowest price ever. Kings, $19.98. Queens, only $18.98. And Giza Dream bed sheets, the best sheets in history, for as low as $29.98. Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets, towels that actually dry you. What a concept. Now only $39.98. And our made in the USA mattresses and mattress toppers as low as $99.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But that's not all. Order right now and we'll ship your order absolutely free.
This is our family dog, Bubba. He is a Shorty Jack Russell, and he brings a lot of love and laughter into our home. We just want to thank Pet Club for making healthy food and treats for our animals. Bubba has been on Pet Club food for a little over a year now. He really likes the Sequoia dry food, and then I put a scoop of the Sequoia wet dog food in there with some hot water and stir it up, and he absolutely loves it. And he likes the mush puppies, but his ultimate favorite is the antlers. Those keep him busy for a really long time, and he really likes them. It makes us feel really good that the food and treats that we give him have healthy ingredients in them, because we want him to be around for a really long time. Our previous dog was a lab, and his name was Titus, and we fed him in bulk, and we would just get his food from the big box grocery stores. And unfortunately, that food wasn't very healthy for him, and he ended up getting cancer and passing away. So we didn't want to make that mistake with Bubba. So we were really fortunate to find Pet Club and find some really healthy food for him to eat. So we would just like to thank Pet Club, and we just really appreciate the healthy food that they make, so we can keep this guy around as long as we can.
I had 5 units that I purchased for the practice right out of the chute. Well, those went the first week that I got back to Houston. So then we ordered another 5 and then another 5. And I think over the next, 6 to 8 weeks, we had ordered like 35 units. And they're gone. They're still gone out of the practice. So we're excited about moving more of these units for our patients because they need them. And so when you bring in new technology and your staff's thinking, oh, this is another thing that I need to handle during the day, I think it's a good idea to give them a little incentive. And I do it as a team. So if one person does well, the whole team does well. So they all support each other. And they got really excited about that. They love it. They'll bring a unit in, turn it on, put it on the patient's foot or leg, and they'll tell the patients, be sure to talk to Dr. Parker about red light therapy. And the patient will say, red light therapy, yeah, I've heard of that, And so I'll walk in and my nurse is she'll tell me, I've spoken to Mrs. Jones about this red light therapy, and she's really excited about it. So Red Vibe has been fantastic for our bottom line.
For centuries, light has been used to heal. Awaken the body with Red Vibe.
Some of your comments seen during the break. Really appreciate you guys watching, being with us. KM144 says, thank you, Paul Harrell, for being so calm and filled with helpful information that you share with us. You're very welcome, and I really do appreciate that comment. I was just telling Eric during the break, I needed a show like this. I needed a topic like this. That I know it's not in the news. I know it's not necessarily in the headlines, but man, it just, there's a certain degree of these talk shows, or at least in my experience, where it's very therapeutic. Matter of fact, when you get, anytime we have a guest on who's not normally used to this, and they actually come and sit down in the studio after the show, they feel fantastic because they actually feel like they've gotten something off of their chest. That maybe the only person that's heard their political opinions are their wives, for years, and so they. But it is actually therapeutic, but without the audience, it's actually crazy, right? Like if I didn't have an audience and I was doing this, I would essentially just be like, what, a crazy person, I guess. Like I'm going to go into a closet and just talk to myself for the next 2 hours. But no, we really do appreciate it. Also, let's see. Somebody was saying it was Calpurnia. So you have to forgive me that somebody is okay, but I can't. Anyway, I apologize. I'm now missing the comment that I was going to highlight. But anyway, I do want to get to what we were talking about before the break. So we posted this short over on Facebook here. Let's see here. These have been getting a lot of traction recently, but from lefties, which is fine. We appreciate the engagement, as we said yesterday. But Rob Spencer said this yesterday on the show. Hang on one second. Let me figure this out.
A chance at life. Please give that child a chance at life. Their life has value. Let them. You're like, well, I can't do it. I wouldn't be able to handle it if I knew that they were alive in the world. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You're saying I would rather kill my child than let them have a chance at life with a family who will love and protect them.
Have you actually heard them say that? People say that before?
I've heard people say that they don't think they would be able to give a child up for adoption emotionally. And I said, so you can kill them?
That is kind of crazy.
That they have said that multiple times.
Up. Yeah.
Will you please give that child a chance?
Is what it is. Just a highlight of our show. We're trying to get the message out. We want more people to tune in and that sort of thing. But then we've had some people that are very not happy with it. Some people are. Somebody named Akela says, I've heard women say this. It's insane. So there are some people that are in agreement. We've got one lady here by the name of Katie Prawn who says, no, that's actually a different one. I haven't read that one yet. Hang on one second. Oh, yeah, but I guess this is a liberal. She says, I almost died from blood loss after my first birth. My friend died during her C-section. Pregnancy and childbirth come with risks. These are bigger risks than vaccines, by the way. So if you're against government-mandated vaccines, you should be against government-mandated birth. These are two totally different things, by the way. That's not the own that they think it is, but they certainly do think it is. But it's not, because we're talking about two lives, not just one. But anyway, I think Robin Cox Holcomb says, men need to understand the physical and emotional hormonal damage that pregnancy has on a woman. Childbirth can still result in death. So you are demanding women carry a child to term regardless of how the baby was made. Rape comes to mind when you demand a reasonable form of, for instance, when biological men can actually experience it, then you can be taken seriously. And then we have somebody else that says, just do it early before there's a brain or a heart, which is still murder, by the way. But then we have this lady, Shelly Shell. I don't know who you are, Shelly Shell, but you didn't like what Rob said. You said, I wonder how many orphans he has adopted. Which, if any of you saw yesterday's show...
Whoa.
If any of you saw yesterday's show, by the way, not that it should matter at all, but Rob actually has adopted 3 orphans. He's adopted 3 children, actually. And I made that point there. But as we were saying earlier, the brain rot is actually real. There are people that still just have believed this spell that, hey, in an effort, I don't know, in an effort to want to be angry with the Lord for making, two distinct sexes and male and female, and you're just upset that I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but they seem to think that there's some that things are not equal and that gives you the right to kill a baby. Well, things are not equal, right? Men and women are definitely different. Women carry the children. The men father the children. It's just the way you were created. And we weren't created with the option of killing your child. Or, I mean, maybe we were created with that option, but it is murder. So, anyway, good on Rob. This is now the second day in a row that Rob's short has triggered somebody. So we're going to keep cutting them up, and we're going to keep posting it. Because the last short that we posted yesterday had somebody that knew somebody that was with him at a Huey's in Memphis. And
you could talk about the pickle story?
Yeah, the pickles.
Well, people like this, I mean, these keyboard warriors, man, you can't, as again, a part of our societal and cultural decay, you cannot give them the attention that they are demanding and wanting by saying stuff like this. I feel bad saying this, but you just kind of have to just laugh at them and move on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say anything to persuade this person. It's not anybody that I know.
Yeah.
And that gets back to part of the problem with folks like this that just start banging out messages like that. It's like, you don't know us.
Changing the world one keystroke at a time.
Yeah,
brother.
it's like, come on.
Changing the world. All right, so here's this other story that I wanted to get to. We referenced it about what's going on in Fort Worth, Texas. And I think what's going on, the left was all about defund the police. And obviously I'm against defunding the police. But I will say that clips like this make me persuasive to the argument, but for totally different reasons.
Yeah.
Blue Lives Matter says, on behalf of the largest police news outlet in the world, we are officially calling for the resignation or termination of this officer immediately. A female Fort Worth police officer was caught on camera threatening to ticket a retired federal law enforcement officer and Christian street preacher for, quote, offensive speech. The officer told the man that if someone is offended by his preaching, then we have a problem, and said she would issue him a ticket. When he asked if she was really going to ticket him for offensive speech, she replied, "Yes, I am." This is a blatant violation of the First Amendment. Police officers do not have the authority to ticket people for speech that offends others. That is the exact opposite of how freedom of speech works in America. The fact that this officer targeted a retired federal law enforcement officer who was simply preaching makes this even more unacceptable. Departments that employ officers who openly disregard the Constitution need to clean house. This kind of behavior erodes public trust and, well, exactly, and makes every good officer's job harder. Pass this along so more people see what is happening in our streets. Here is the video in question. Take it away.
That ordinance means like music, not talking.
Hang on a second. Let's. I've got a better cut here. Let's go to this one.
That ordinance means like music, not talking. If someone is offended by your talking, then we have a problem.
That is a constitutional violation of our rights. If you shut us down,
no. If they are offended by your speech, okay, then I'll write you the ticket, and we'll go from there.
Wait, you're going to take us for offensive speech?
Yes, absolutely.
Are you serious?
Speech. You're going to cite us for offensive
it's called disorderly conduct.
That's,
no.
No. Disorderly conduct has to be accompanied by conduct.
This is the conduct
I'm
that you're
a retired
doing.
police officer myself.
For who?
26 years, federal law enforcement.
So it's federal. So this has nothing to do with local.
Wow.
It has nothing to do with local.
Yeah. Well,
do whatever y'all think that you can do.
Well, it says 80
whatever we
decibels.
think. Wow.
It says 80 decibels.
Since y'all know the law so well, I'm not going to let y'all do
So I just want to clarify. If anything is said that's offensive, you're going to write the ticket?
If someone complains that your language or what you're saying is offensive,
pretty loud.
So
My goodness. What do you even do with that? What the arrogance there too? Like, so arrogant. She's upset that this guy's former law enforcement and actually knows law, but because you guys know the law so well, you know there's like a psychology behind. People have tried to kind of critique the psychology of police officers. And look, I'm not a cop, and we were talking off air. I have no idea about what interacting with a lot of criminals does to a person over. I mean, I get it. It's a thing I can't comprehend. Maybe I can have empathy for it, but we do have a psychosis that I think develops among some law enforcement officers, where you have the bad guys. Okay, we know what to do with them. Go after the law breakers. Then you have the civilians that are not doing anything. Okay, leave them alone and protect them. But then there's the third option, which is just a-holes that you don't like, that you want to bully and you need to deal with. Oh, that's an a-hole that needs to be dealt with. And I think that's what this is. I think that's what or you've got somebody that maybe she's the one that's actually offended by the preaching of the gospel. And I don't even know if the guy says he's a street preacher. I have no idea what he's preaching. But maybe she was the one that was actually offended. Maybe he was preaching on how women in combat is unbiblical.
Well, so Paul, give her the benefit of the doubt that she is just trying to keep the peace, and that she's had a whole bunch of people triggered by their speech.
Okay.
And I've seen this play out many times in Memphis and other areas at music festivals. Big groups will come in with these signs. And, I mean, they will really, really be charismatically and emphatically preaching the gospel in their attempt to sway all these drunks there to have a good time at this music festival into realizing that they're going to go to hell. I've seen it many times. Let's just assume for a second that she's just trying to keep the peace, okay? That's by pandering, basically. That's exactly the point we were making a while ago with why our cultural decay in our society and in our churches, why things have gone downhill so bad. We've done exactly what she's done, is pander to the other, to pander to the crazies to keep the peace. And we've pandered to those that are going to freak out and come up and lose their cool. And this is why there is Antifa and so many others, anarchists, fascists, the real fascists that talk about other fascists that aren't fascists.
Yep.
This is why we're there, and it's not just because of people like her, but I'm saying this is a symptom of that. She's pandering. Mm-hmm. She's had some crazies, some purple-haired, vagina hat crazies come up to her and say, "Hey, they're offending me by what they're saying. I don't want to hear about Jesus. I don't want to hear about that. We want to keep that separate."
Yeah, this is Christo-fascism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
I'm wrong.
But it comes down to, it does come down to her personally. She doesn't understand. She does not understand that she's there to protect people's rights, not protect people from being offended. She doesn't understand that, and that's dangerous. And there's so many officers that are out there just like this.
Yeah,
so many of them. And
if some people came up to her on the street and said, "Hey, I have a problem with those Muslims over there laying out their carpets and yelling,"
happen.
And
you and I both know that's not going to happen.
I know
she's not going to do a thing about that.
Or, or we can go down a whole road of different types of folks that are out on the streets.
All right, so here's another one. Same police department, Fort Worth police officer says that calling a biological male a sir is a gray area, and that he would potentially ticket the preacher. This preacher is tagged here. Let me see here. Rich Pinkoshi, Bible preacher, waging war on woke lies and sin, defending truth, country in Christ, content to awaken the church, no retreat. I've never heard of this guy before, but at first glance, that sounds good to me. Here is this interaction.
But no, I want to ask, and I'm being dead serious. So if a biological male comes up to me who says he's a woman, and I call him, I say, sir, and he gets offended, is that a citable offense? If I call a biological male a male, and he says I'm offended.
Listen to what he's saying. I can hear the preacher in the background. Can you hear him? There's a cure for homosexuality, and it's called the blood of Christ. That'll get people offended, for sure.
If I call a biological male a male, and he says I'm offended, I'm gonna whatever. Is that a citable offense if he's offended by that speech?
Man, we're talking gray area right now. When I talked about earlier when it says that's a vague conversation, vague charge.
I'm genuinely curious.
Sure, I don't believe I would cite that for offensive language. Offensive language to me is calling somebody
N-word,
curse words.
We don't curse, we're preachers.
Sure, no, I agree. But it's more like you call somebody a male, I don't necessarily find that offensive unless they come up.
You don't, but what if they do?
That's what I'm saying. If they come up and say, hey, I'm offended by that, and you continue to do that, well, then that's just becoming offensive to them.
And here's the catch. Here's the catch.
So it's the, hey, warning, I'm feeling offended by that, then we're moving into the potential.
But so what if I'm offended by what they say? Like they come up telling me this and then the other, swearing at me, will they get cited?
Are you offended by it?
I'm offended by all of this.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I'm offended by seeing half-naked men run around with children. I am deeply offended by that.
Correct. Unfortunately, there's not much on our side to do anything.
Go back to Francis Schaeffer. The modern interpretation of the First Amendment is a tyranny against the people.
This is a lose-lose situation, though, Paul. I mean, it's lose-lose. So,
I get what you're saying, but man, this kind of ties back to the obscenity situation. Okay.
Yeah.
They're saying offensive. They might as well just say obscene. Okay, that's obscene speech, right?
To who?
Yeah, to who? Based on what?
Based
standard?
on what?
Based on what?
Yeah. To who? Based on what?
So if you use
that's such a slippery slope.
Literally, they're saying, he's sitting there saying, if you use the N-word in public, we can write you up for that. That's not freedom of speech. Now you may say, well, hey, you shouldn't say that word, or that's an unkind word to say, but that's not America. That's not that goes, but it goes to show you that blasphemy laws exist. They're going to exist. It just depends on according to who, right? There was a time in America where you could not blaspheme the triune God of the Bible, of Christianity. Couldn't do it. It was against the law. We've just replaced that. We've replaced that with stuff like this. Oh, well, our religion is you can't say the N-word, or you can't tell homosexuals that there is a cure for you, and it's called the blood of Jesus Christ. That is now considered blasphemy in Fort Worth, Texas. So, again, it is a binary choice. I'm just reiterating. What is the solution? Well, to remember who we were, recognize we're not who we were, and that we do have a binary choice. I really do. It is really a binary choice, because I don't think secularism is neutral. I believe it is pagan, and it can take different shapes before it eventually gets to being totally anti-Christian. But I think we're certainly there, and in a lot of instances, especially in the big cities. There's a great author, Eric, by the name of Aaron Renn. Did you want to say something to that?
No, I just keep getting back to the point of these cops being in this impossible referee situation here, and this stuff's going to continue to happen, and the cruel what's the guy's name? Cruel preacher. That was his
Cruel Messenger.
The Cruel Messenger.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay, I didn't read the Cruel Messenger. He's citing Proverbs. Hang on, let me go back to that.
So he has a right to do what he's doing, but let's just call a spade a spade. He's instigating problems.
Yeah, he's quoting Proverbs 17:11.
These are the same guys that go out in front of banks and public buildings and just stand there with a camcorder on all day, every day to try to incite problems and have people come out and instigate issues, and then they eventually sue him.
Yeah, I didn't see the wallpaper here. Proverbs 17:11. He cites, "An evil man seeketh only rebellion; therefore a cruel messenger
His picture
shall
says
be sent
deport all
against
Muslims.
him."
So that isn't lost on me. That part of the problem is that this messenger is their intent is to rile things up. And whether he thinks he's Stephen or Peter or Paul, okay, that's his right to be able to do that. And it's their right to go complain to the cops that it offends them.
Right.
But the cop's response is an impossible scenario where he has to placate to one or the other. Like, what are they supposed to do? Am I supposed to be mad at Officer Heron there for just trying to stand there and just almost distract to try to keep the peace and to keep people from doing something to where they eventually start brawling in the middle of the street, and then he has to spend the rest of his day booking them in jail? I think to a lot of them, and I haven't had a lot of conversation with them. I think that'd probably be a good thing for me to do, is just to go talk to some cops and be like, how do y'all deal with these situations on the streets where you've just got people with, whether it's politics or culture or whatever, competing interest, clashing? What is your training and what is your job? What are your goals? I don't know. Maybe I hold me accountable if I'm wrong on that. I see this scenario. I've seen this play out before in Memphis and a few other places during big concerts and event festivals and stuff like that. And it's just like, that's a flipping powder keg right there.
Yeah.
And all the cops want to do is just not have to waste their entire night carting people off in the paddy wagon because they all started fighting.
Yeah.
So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because I know they're undertrained.
Well,
and how many thousands of cops quit during COVID?
No, that's a good point. I tend to give them less of the benefit of the doubt, Eric, just because, just because it makes your job harder, standing up for people's freedoms. I'm sorry, and that's the thing. That's the job that has apparently not been communicated or educated to some of these people. I get it. It's a tough job. It's a job that has pitfalls. It's the same way. It's kind of the same thing. Like, I don't understand these cops that kill people's dogs.
Yeah.
You're a police officer and you're afraid of a dog?
Yeah.
A dog, right? I can give you sympathy if it's maybe a pit bull or even a German Shepherd. And as a German Shepherd owner, my dog scares people to death. He wouldn't harm a fly. Although, I don't know, he almost bit Rob's 15-year-old son one time.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, the thing is, I might understand that, but like killing golden doodles, or little bitty dogs, it's like you signed up to potentially get bullets fired at you by criminals, and you're afraid of a dog. Anyway, but as I was saying earlier about the whole, there's this author by the name of Aaron M. Wren, and he wrote a book called Life in the Negative World. And it's several years old at this point, but it basically has, in his view, he takes America where we've been versus where we are, and he sections it off from positive world, neutral world, to negative world. Meaning Christianity, if you were a Christian back into the day, it was a positive aspect. It was still embedded in the culture because of our Christian founding, and it was good. Oh, this is a good thing. You're a Christian. Then sometime, I don't know if it would have been in maybe the 70s to the 90s, it was a neutral idea. Didn't mean anything good. If you were a Christian, didn't mean anything bad. But 2000 to now, or maybe the 90s to now, it is now negative.
Yeah.
Christianity is now considered, and so now we are Christians living in what he calls negative world. And it's just a helpful way to categorize kind of where we were versus where we are. And yes, I long for the days of positive world, right? Who doesn't long for those days? Because that wouldn't positive. We're not talking about positive world that's fake. There's a lot of people that I think fall into
talking about like Norman Rockwell type stuff.
Maybe, but see, that's a benefit. All of that good art, that's just a benefit of actual Christianity. This actually perfectly proves my point.
Yeah,
there's a lot of
to
people,
me that's like the picturesque. What we should all
that's what we all want.
Aspire to is to have those Norman Rockwell photos be. Well, that's our lives.
Yeah.
But then somebody quickly, popped me in the head and said, "Well, I mean, you were born in the wrong generation, then, bro.
Right.
Well, go back to the 50s."
So, back to kind of churches in modern churches. there was a movement about 20 years ago that started criticizing nominal Christianity and cultural Christianity, mainly in the South, where churches were looking around, and I think appropriately so. They were looking around and they were saying, like, there's some people out there that think being a Christian is just like the American flag and apple pie, and they don't actually have a relationship with Jesus. They are sinners. They are unrepentant sinners, and if they died now, they would go to hell. And so there was and I don't deny that that's not a problem. There was a term to call that out, or I guess a movement to try to call that out, to kind of realize that, hey, cultural Christianity is not necessarily a good thing. But I think what they failed at is that I'll take cultural Christianity all day long for my kids to grow up in, versus 90-foot tall monkey statues that scatter the land, mosques that scatter the land, that make it look like we've lost a war. Okay, I'll take that all day long. And what that movement fundamentally failed to understand is the cultural Christianity that we had doesn't just happen without actual Christianity in our history making serious gains. Does that make sense? Like, you're not just going to have cultural Christianity without actual Christians in your past that have secured this derivative, this cultural Christianity, right?
Wow.
And so a cultural Christianity is actually a really good sign that you've got Christians, like real ones, that are making the world a better place for everybody, including non-believers, because, of course, we know that, Western civilization the modern Western civilization very much depends. America doesn't exist without the Protestant Reformation. There is no America without the Protestant Reformation. And so, I don't know. That's just where my head's at. But anyway, Aaron Renn, Negative World Christianity, definitely want to check that out if you've never. Go buy the book, sure, but there's also plenty of articles that articulate exactly what it is he's saying. All right, let's see here. I saw this next story about a site being raided, employed a bunch of illegal aliens. Special operation over on X says a plant manager in South Carolina who had his business raided by ICE says the entire production line is now a ghost town. I want you to, this is a local affiliate that covers this story. Listen to this.
When you look around and there's nobody there, it's dead. It's dead. I mean, we went from having 100 employees working in there to we might have had 24 there today. It's sad. Had a gun, and he pointed it at me, like that. He said, "You are putting those cuffs on." And I look at him, and are you going to shoot me? And I stuck my arms out there like that. Never seen nothing like that in my life. That's the only time I've ever had a gun pointed at me in my life. I didn't know what was going on, and I heard people screaming. So I walk into the machine shop, and there's 50, 60 agents in there. When you look around and there's nobody there, it's dead. It's dead. I mean, we went from having 100 employees.
All right, so sorry, I'm
there
looking this up because I wanted a little bit more context here. I should have done this beforehand, but what are your thoughts on that? Keep in mind, hiring illegals is illegal. Newsflash, buddy. I mean, come on. Newsflash.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because this is what Democrats say. Well, and infamously have said, especially the Hollywood elites that defend mass migration. Remember what their points are, Paul? Well, when you deport them all, who's going to clean your toilets? And who's going to mow your grass? And who's going to make your beds? Like, Democrat elite Hollywood elites have said this on camera before. Like, this is how they think. Well, if they go, then who's going to do these jobs? I don't know. Americans that need jobs? I mean, geez.
So here's the story. You're exactly right. AG detained by ICE, the Attorney General, 48, detained by ICE in Abbeville, County plant. 6 indicted in ghost story operation. This was from June the 4th. So this was last month in Columbia, South Carolina. South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson said a multi-agency operation in Abbeville County led to the detention of 48 people in the U.S. illegally and the state grand jury indictment of 6 defendants. Wilson said the investigation, dubbed Operation Ghost Story, began in fall of 2024. He said authorities executed the operation Wednesday at the Bernstein von Steelen Precision Casting in Abbeville. 2 managers were arrested on state grand jury charges, and ICE detained 48 workers. Bond hearings, let's see. It doesn't exactly tell us. Here's a few quotes. South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson: if you're unlawfully aiding illegal immigrants in South Carolina, you're going to be investigated and will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. If you're taking advantage of hardworking Americans, stealing their identities, and are intentionally ignoring your responsibilities as an employer in an effort to circumvent the law, we're going to come for you. We're coming for you.
Do you see the rap sheet of some of those employees if you scroll back up? Now, granted, the most important picture was the one at the top, which was of the plant manager going out in handcuffs. But look up just a little bit in that article where it's showing pictures of the detainee. Look.
Is that what you're talking about
there?
Yeah.
Look at the rap sheets of some of those employees that they're bringing in. They don't care, though, Paul. They just want cheap labor. And this is a part of this whole conversation where we're talking about mass migration and illegal immigrants and them being here and needing to be. We also need to hold them accountable and send them back, but we also need to hold accountable the corporations and businesses that are employing them and that are demanding that they fill the jobs that they need because they're cheap and they can take advantage of them and not give them any benefits and pay them cash.
Here's some more quotes. This is from Mark Zito, the special agent in charge of Homeland Security, North and South Carolina. The crimes uncovered in Operation Ghost Story are not victimless. When illegal aliens use stolen identities and forged documents, they victimize law-abiding citizens whose personal information is misused and undermine the security of our communities. These actions also enable business to profit from illegal labor at the expense of honest workers and employees. HSI is committed to working with our partners to aggressively investigate and dismantle these criminal operations, protect victims, and hold offenders fully accountable. This is a positive story, but this stuff needs to happen all across the country in order to affect, real change where Americans get these jobs. And the idea that Americans won't do them is ridiculous. I actually think they will. And I think there's a lot of people, though, that, they may have to, like Rob and I talked about the other day, people are, I think right now that they're going to have to get over some of these preconceived notions. Like, I went to college to get a degree. AI is going to make it worthless. But if I really want to, to still provide, if jobs like these come open, I'm just not going to do what I went to school to do. And it's like, well, that's a tough thing to swallow, but there's a lot of that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But then again, you've got, AI could take over those jobs too. I mean, who knows? But it's still there's still a lot of problems, but getting rid of the illegals and getting rid of the employers that are hiring illegals, this should have been done a long time ago. And, Rob talked about this, in the Trump administration. They came out and they said that for H-1B workers, you were going to have to pay $100,000 per worker, and then they backed off that. Mm-hmm. Then we were told that we're not going to go after the farms, we're not going to go after the hotels and the illegals there because, that's a donor thing. I mean, there's no other rationale. That's a donor thing. And, of course, we want the violent ones prioritized. But to say that a big portion of the Republican Party doesn't represent people that are like, no, we want this over with. We want this reversed. We want serious re-immigration. That is what we voted for. And so we'll see. Now, because of this story here, a Texas hospital confirmed to Fox News it's behind the billboards at the U.S.-Mexico border advertising childbirth services and encouraging expectant mothers to give birth in Texas because now they get citizenship thanks to Amy Coney Barrett. Lauren Chen says, why are American hospitals advertising to Mexicans that they can deliver an anchor baby for $4,000 when with insurance my delivery at the hospital was over $6,000 out of pocket? Are American patients subsidizing anchor baby deliveries for illegals? What's going on here? Now, because of these billboards, the Trump administration has now petitioned the Supreme Court to rehear the case. I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but you never know.
Unbelievable.
You never know. I'm going to go over the process here in a minute. Nick Sorter says President Trump announces he is filing for a rehearing. He's got 25 days to do so. A rehearing with the U.S. Supreme Court on birthright citizenship after an anchor baby hospital was discovered in Texas. Signs and billboards are being put up all over our southern border in Mexico advertising birthright citizenship with delivery starting at $4,000. That is a crime, and therefore the Supreme Court's ruling is wrong. I will be asking for a rehearing by the United States Supreme Court immediately. This miscarriage of justice will destroy America if they don't change their absolutely insane decision. U.S. citizenship is not for sale. And so that's what Donald Trump is doing. Now, if this were to happen, and I may have my facts a little bit wrong, but this is my assumption, if in order for this to happen, Trump has to file the petition, I want a rehearing. In order for the court to rehear President Trump's case on this, one of the justices that voted for the majority has to start the process. So,
which Kavanaugh would.
Kavanaugh would. That's what they're saying.
He's already left the door open for
right.
that.
He left the door open. So Kavanaugh can, and that may be why he voted the way he did in the first place, leaving this possibility open.
Yeah.
So Kavanaugh says, I'm going to start the process. Once he files the paperwork and acknowledges the president's request, then it just takes, and I say just because this is a doozy, it will take a majority of the court to decide to rehear it.
Right.
Which means you either need John Roberts or Amy Coney Barrett. Because obviously Kavanaugh is going to vote to rehear it.
They'll get both.
You think so?
Yeah.
Roberts and Coney Barrett?
Oh, yeah.
You think that they're actually going to do this?
Yep.
Why? What makes you think? What makes you so confident?
I think they will eventually realize the error of their ways, and this is a perfect symptom of that problem that they ignored based on a technicality.
In the oral arguments, John Robert was like, he got brought up the Chinese baby thing on planes, and he says, well, the 14th Amendment framers, I'm not even going to consider that.
Yeah. Part of me just goes back to, I know they've heard their partner and friend, Justice Clarence Thomas, and what he said had to have impacted them. And I hope that it does.
What did he say? Remind me, because I can't remember.
Feel free to pull it up, because
all right, let me pull it up.
It's absolutely incredible how well spoken. I mean, and he's just incredibly well spoken.
Give me the gist of it, exactly. Like,
well, he made all of the specific and intentional references to what the 14th Amendment was actually about, which was for slaves.
All right, I've got just an AI summary that Google popped up. Let's read this. He claimed that simply being born on American soil isn't enough to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. A person's parents must also be domiciled, permanently residing in the country. He argued that the children of foreign temporary visitors and those here unlawfully remain subject to the political power of their home nations. Thomas contended that the citizenship clause was specifically a race conscience remedial measure designed to protect freed slaves. He asserted that formerly enslaved black Americans were entitled to citizenship because they were Americans with no other homeland, and the amendment was meant to ensure that they were never treated as second-class citizens. Ultimately, his views were rejected by the 6-3 majority led by John Roberts, blah, 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 blah. Anything else?
I just love Clarence Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, no, he's good. He made the arguments.
Yeah. His and Alito's dissent was pretty impactful.
Civilizational suicide is what they basically said. The Constitution says that they wrote in there that we are not allowed to have a country. That birthright citizenship, your birthright, Eric, my birthright,
Coney Barrett and
belongs
Roberts
to the whole world.
Coney Barrett and Roberts will flip.
Well, they just need one of them to.
I know.
They just need one.
I think they both will.
You would think. I mean, Okay, let me say this. After the billboard thing and after this rehearing, if they don't flip, they're evil. They're evil human beings. I'm sorry.
Whoa!
They are evil human beings.
Shots fired.
Seriously, how they want this country to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Like literally, they are usurpers,
and I know they
are enemies.
And I know they don't. I'm
not so sure, Eric, but we'll see. I love your optimism.
Forgive me for being optimistic, but I know they don't. Deep down, I think they made a mistake, and I think they'll realize they made a mistake, and things like this will show them, like, well, by your decision, this is what you've opened the door to.
Yeah.
So now go ahead and do the right thing this time and close that door.
Yeah. Real quick, I'm going to
don't let our country be invaded by HaveMyBabyInMiami.com.
Is that a real site?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that. HaveMyBabyInMiami.com is a real site.
It was one of those parodied sites that, it was like there are birthright tourism websites where these, especially people from the CCP can go on and pay a fee and they'll get concierge service. They'll have people pick them up, drive them to where they're staying in very close proximity to the hospital that they plan on having that child there. I mean, this is the disgusting advertisement that hospital is literally doing, saying, oh, well, if you're going to come here and do this, bring us the money.
Yeah. We got to take a quick break because I forgot to press.
We don't even have to fight for insurance for that.
Yeah.
You guys can just write us a check.
I forgot to take the local break, so forgive me, folks. We got to go to break real quick. We'll be back here in 2 minutes, so don't go anywhere. Back here in just a moment.
The other things that we're seeing, more and more use for is even vascular issues. So one of the mechanisms that red light, near-infrared light, or red VIVE works is stimulation of the mitochondria and stimulation of nitric oxide production. So when nitric oxide is released in cells, it vasodilates cells. It reduces inflammation. It moves blood. It brings blood flow to areas. So folks that have issues with ulcers or burns or wounds, it can help stimulate increased blood supply, and you need blood to heal. So that can open up different avenues for peripheral artery disease, for neuropathic pain syndromes. And so that's one of the other areas for nerve injury or nerve pain that we can leverage this type of medicine.
MyPillow's second annual mega sale is finally here. Get our patented premium MyPillows that adjust to your exact individual needs to give you the best sleep of your life.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
Now for the lowest price ever. Kings, $19.98. Queens, only $18.98. And Giza Dream bed sheets, the best sheets in history, for as low as $29.98. Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets, towels that actually dry you. What a concept. Now only $39.98. And our made in the USA mattresses and mattress toppers as low as $99.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But that's not all. Order right now and we'll ship your order absolutely free.
The Paul Harrell Program.
MyPillow's second annual mega sale.
Sorry about that, folks.
The Paul Harrell Program.
Sometimes we hit the wrong button. We go back to break. We come back from break. But here we are. Remember the old cartoon, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? Every time I see one of these, every time I see this Mitch McConnell story, that's what I think. Like, where in the world is the great turtle of the Senate? This is, I This meme just now he's got a cigarette in his mouth. It never gets old. Marco Rubio,
just like Ray.
Marco Rubio confirms he's also spoken to Senator Mitch McConnell this morning. So people aren't really. I know. Look, it's pretty interesting though, because there are people that just don't believe Scott Jennings at all, and now people are saying he must have been talking to AI or something. And I know you disagree with that, Eric, but like it's kind of nuts. Like I will say it is. I heard Jeremy Harrell talking about this. It is kind of nuts. This guy hasn't been able to carry on a conversation in public for a long time. And we're supposed to believe he was talking about Iran and Ukraine and all this stuff from a hospital bed after he had a heart attack. It is kind of an unbelievable, and I know you say, well, why would Scott Jennings lie? But it is a very, very tough thing for me to believe. What are your thoughts? I mean, feel free to disagree.
I just refuse to call Scott Jennings a liar.
Without evidence.
Yeah. That's effectively what you would have to do, and that's the same thing we talked about with the comments of a lot of political pundits and talking heads and influencers.
Rob Spencer agrees with you.
You don't have to, yeah. You don't have to believe everything they say. You don't have to agree with everything they say. But in this situation, you would literally have to call Scott Jennings a liar and just, refuse to believe him at all.
Well, there's a lot of if it ever is proven definitively that he did make this up or was duped or whatever, it really shows you how desperate they are. Mitch McConnell, chair of the Appropriations Committee, holding the Senate hostage with his vote on a lot of things, being controlled like a puppet master. But Rob Spencer says he's alive and well. He posted this last night. I'm not sure what all the hubbub is about. Senator McConnell and I went to see the Brooks and Dunn concert last night. Dude had like 15 shots of rot gut whiskey. Could a dead guy do that? I think not. Side note, he knew every word to Brand New Man, which to me was very telling. So
you guys look so good at that concert.
That's why awesome. Rob's
so
not here today.
So glad they took this picture.
No, that's why Rob's not here today. I'll
he's
prove
recovering.
It. There's his empty chair.
Yeah.
So the reason Rob isn't here is because he had those shots of rot gut whiskey along with Mitch McConnell at the Brooks and Dunn concert, and he's just he's confirming to us that there's nothing wrong. Mitch McConnell's fine. In other news, let me refresh this and see if there's a community note on this. This was one of the first things I saw this morning, posted a couple of days ago, but there's never been a community note on it. Some people say it's AI, that this is a picture of Mitch McConnell, hooked up to a ventilator, and I don't know if that's true. I guess that could be AI. We don't even know anymore because it's blurry, like blurry photos. I suspect this is AI. I don't know how they would ever, this would have to come from like a nurse or a healthcare professional that would obviously they'd know who did it and they'd probably lose their job. But maybe this is real. People have claimed to put this through AI detectors. They say it's legitimate. I don't really know. But the fact that it's a blurry photo, kind of
see that reinforces my point.
Yeah.
That I was making the other day. It's like, no, he's not going to make a 30-second I'm doing okay video.
Yeah, but he said he talked to Scott Jennings Scott Jennings said they had a 20-minute conversation. Have you seen Scott Jennings explain the conversation on CNN? Have you?
No, I haven't. You got to show me this.
All right. Okay. All right.
This may sway me.
Let me find this because
you may actually sway me.
As he was talking, hang on, CNN, Mitch. As he was talking, I was kind of like, it just something didn't set right with me. My BS meter was going off. Let's get to the question. Here it is.
Do you think he'd be willing to call into the show? Could we get him on the phone now?
I wasn't really expecting him to call this morning, to be honest. So when the phone rang and I was able to talk to him, I was frankly pretty grateful. I mean, as I said, I've known him since I was a teenager. If it hadn't been for Mitch McConnell and the McConnell Center at the University of Louisville, I would never have been able to go to college. He's been my mentor, and he changed the trajectory of my life. So, when things happen to him and happen to people in your life that you really care about, you just sort of naturally feel extremely worried. So when I heard his voice today, and he was clearly keeping up with stuff, that made me happy to hear from him, because like everybody else, I've been, somewhat in the dark about it. But to hear him talking and to know that he's also talking to the Senate leadership, it made me pretty happy.
The MAGA media.
Call him a liar. You would have to do that. You'd have to just call him.
I don't have evidence. I don't have evidence that he's a liar. I don't have evidence of that, so I can't call him a liar. All I'm saying is I just wonder if he's telling the truth. I wonder if he's telling the truth.
Well, we're gonna find out.
Yeah,
if
true.
he's dead or if he's in a coma or completely incapacitated, we're gonna find out.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I'm looking at the LFA chat. All right, so some people are willing to do more than me. Some people are willing to do this. Let's see. Patriot 8989 says Scott is a total liar. Disappointing. Chicken Mama 69 says, so is the body double ready? ? So they're already preparing them.
Here we
They're
go.
saying, look, if we do see him, it's not really him. It's like the 6'5" tall Joe Biden that we all saw after he had his medical event. I don't know if you remember that. Or remember Admiral Flaps from earlier this year, Eric? Remember Admiral Mask?
I don't believe you on that one either.
I know you don't believe me, but it's your own eyes. The dude was wearing a mask. 100% was wearing a mask, man.
Bad collar, bad shadow. Shut up. Move on.
Patriot.
Put your head back in the sand.
It didn't even look like the same guy.
Yes, it did.
No, it didn't even look like the same guy that had been on there, weeks earlier. They looked totally different. The man must have had Botox in his scalp. Put Botox in your scalp, and then we'll see. All right. So anyway, we'll continue to watch this closely. Interestingly enough, I'm going to end on the story, kind of a follow-up to our lead story yesterday, which comes from the American Truckers United, who are calling attention. They want ICE at every way station that they can possibly find. And we were kind of on the beginning of this story because now it's going everywhere.
Yeah.
Or we were a day earlier than some, which is rare for us, just to be perfectly honest with you guys. Zero Hedge now posting an op-ed, Dear Trump, time to flood America's way stations with ICE and CBP agents. And submitted by American Truckers United. We, the truckers who keep America moving, have had enough, they say. An analysis of crash data and English proficiency violations reveals that drivers from just a handful of states are largely responsible for the epidemic of illegal alien truck and bus drivers terrorizing our highways. These preventable tragedies must end now. We are formally calling on President Donald J. Trump to immediately deploy ICE and CBP officers to commercial weigh-in stations across the entire country. No more half measures, no more looking the other way. American families deserve safe roads. I completely agree. Let's hope that happens, as well as putting them at polling stations. Eric, I'll give you the last word. We got 10 seconds.
Thanks so much for letting me be a part of the conversation today, brother. It was great.
I appreciate it. I hope you have a great weekend.
You too, my friend.
Folks, I'll be back here tomorrow for the Friday show solo. Want to give a shout out to Red Vive Health, New Horizon Real Estate, Gateway Sight and Sound, Pet Club 247, and Sherrod Chiropractic. We will see you tomorrow.